Hello and welcome to Verbling. I am Teacher Oakley, and for the next hour, we will be concluding our series on the TOEFL speaking exam. We will be concluding this series by looking specifically at TOEFL speaking questions 5 and 6. These are integrated questions, listening and speaking. In both cases, you will listen to an audio. You will have a very short 20 seconds to prepare your response, and then you need to speak for 60 seconds. Okay. In today's class, we're going to be slowly going through both of these questions, and I will be sharing with you a template, basically, a template of organization of how to answer the question. The idea being that in this exam, in the TOEFL exam, they want what they want, and a good portion of your score is actually your ability to answer the question directly and fully answer the question. So it's important to squeeze in as much information into that 1 minute as you can. So if you really need to be completely organized and know exactly how you're going to present your material before you ever walk into the TOEFL examination room. And that's kind of what it's all about today. Of course, as we go along, hopefully I can make other tips and pointers, and we'll try practicing a couple. I mean, as we're doing this, we'll practice the questions. Okay, let me welcome students to the class. Hello, Hogan. Good to see you here again.
Hi, Oakley. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
Yeah, pretty good.
Great. Great. And we have been joined by Wasu. Hello, Was. Is it Wasu?
Yeah, Vasu. Hello, teacher.
Okay.
How are you?
Great. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine too.
Okay. Great. Welcome to the class. Okay, gentlemen. Well, quick note to any viewers out there in Verbling. Plenty of room in the class. Come on in. And please, in the class or joining the class, any questions at all, really, I'm more than welcome. Any questions whatsoever, and anytime, if you need to interrupt me, that's perfectly okay. I'm okay with that. Don't worry about it. I'm here to help you and answer your questions. As a matter of fact, gentlemen, any questions before we get started? Or can we get to it?
Yeah, I have just a quick question.
Certainly.
I'm mostly interested in the speaking in English. So is there any better or best and efficient way to improve my speaking? Not just preparing for the exam, but in overall speaking in English. Like some kind of magic.
Yeah, that's funny because you just guessed my answer. I was just going to say, well, there's no magic bullet or there's no magic answer. That's for sure. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but practice, practice, practice. Basically, there's so many facets. There's the grammar, there's the vocabulary, there's the colloquial expressions, phrasal verbs, idioms. There's so many different aspects to the English language that have to be learned. And then to truly learn it, you need to practice. So I really don't have any magical answer other than give yourself every possible opportunity to practice that you can. Sorry, I don't have a better response.
So that means not just a couple of methods is not enough. You can just try to every possible way, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. And frankly, honestly, different students learn in a different way. I don't, I may be teaching the same material in my one-on-one classes to different students, but I may have to do it a different way because one thing works better for one student and another methodology works better for another student. The fact is we all learn differently. So, you have to discover what works best for you. To some degree, it's very personal. So,
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, then let's begin. We are going to start with question 5. Now, the way I see it, in my opinion, question 5, well, let me lay it out to you. It's a conversation. In this conversation, it's always the same thing. The format is the same. One student will have a problem, and the other student will make suggestions. In fact, they'll make 2 suggestions. Your job is to make notes, identify the problem, identify the 2 possible solutions, and write them in your notes. You're allowed to take notes. You've got to capture that information, or the question, frankly, is pretty much impossible to answer. That's the key. The other key, this question, actually, the question part of the question is like this. Here it is. The narrator will say, the speakers discuss 2 possible solutions for the man's problems. Here's the question. Describe the problem. Then, state which of the 2 solutions you prefer. Then, explain why you choose that solution. So you're doing, in the first part of your answer, you're doing reported speech. You're reporting what happened. And the second part, the more important part actually, is the second part. You're giving your opinion. You're stating reasons, supporting examples or details. You should be giving at least 2 reasons to support your opinion, which solution is better, with detail, in order to fully answer the question. Still, that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff to be talking about in 60 seconds. In this question, and again, in my opinion, the challenge is really to fit all of that into the the 60 seconds you're given. So you really have to, it's really important to know exactly what you're going to say, what information you're going to present, in what order. So your organization is really key. Because if the time ends and you haven't actually supported why your opinion, you can't do very well, because you've only half answered the question. So that's the trick to this question. Okay, conversation. It is. All right, I'm going to do a screen share. We're going to be looking at the. We're going to look at the transcript of an example conversation. How it's going to go. Okay. Okay. Hogan, I'm gonna have you try to answer the first question. You were the first one into the class, so I'll have you try to answer it. Okay.
Okay.
So you just listen and you make notes.
Okay.
Wasu, I could use your assistance. If you wouldn't mind helping me out. Would you mind reading the man part? I'll be the woman. I'm not scared. Wasu, would you mind?
No.
Okay. All right, let's do it. You and me, Wasu. How's that paper coming along, Chris?
Coming along. You're jogging, right?
Stuck, huh?
Yes. The problem is I can't get started. I mean, I have all the information I want to use. That's the fascinating thing for all. I start my research early rather than leaving it to the last minute.
Have you considered just sitting at the computer and making yourself type? Sometimes that helps if you have writer's block.
Just trying whatever come to mind.
Uh-huh. You can't force inspiration, but if you just let yourself relax, let your thoughts flow and type them out, you'll eventually get into the rhythm and you'll start writing good stuff for your paper.
I don't know.
Okay, well, the other thing is, what about making an outline?
An outline?
Sure, your research is done, right? So take your note cards and organize them on the paper first. See, like, here's the main point I want to make in this paragraph, and here are 3 details I want to use to support it.
I see.
And if you do that for each section of your paper, you have the structure all mapped out. And when you're writing, you just need to connect the pieces. It can be a lot easier to deal with. Okay, that's it. Hopefully, you noticed that there were, you know what the problem is, you know what the 2 solutions are. There's not a lot of detail that you have to really hear in this question. That's not really the tricky part. Okay, and then the question, by the way, is always exactly the same. It never differentiates. It's exactly this. The narrator will say, the speakers discuss 2 possible solutions for the man's problem. Describe the problem, then state which of the 2 solutions you prefer, and explain why. That's it. Hogan, are you ready to give this a try?
Sure, I'll try.
Okay.
The conversation is between the professor and the student. And professor asks the student whether your research is working well and write something. And the student answer that it's not started yet. So the professor suggests things. Why don't you just get started instead of just thinking? So just sit in front of the computer and write something. Then the students think just sitting in front of the computer is enough. So the professor told him that um, prepare some the flashcard and write down some subject and details and try to organize them. So that's 2 possible solutions. To get started first and write something and organize it.
Okay. Now, you've only done, okay, here's the problem. You did a great job with reported speech. You described the problem. What you didn't do is this whole much more important part of the question. Then state which of the 2 solutions you prefer and explain why. You missed half the question, actually the bigger half.
Okay.
Okay, I'll teach you, I'll show you exactly how to do it to get to the meat, the most important part. Wasu, do you want to give this a try? Or not? You want to make an attempt?
I want to listening first.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
No, don't be sorry. I know this is new for you, so okay. Let's first, before I kind of show you how it's done, I'm going to show you a template. But I want to point out something when making notes, okay? The people are going to have a kind of, how are you, what's going on, blah, blah moment, okay? Then notice here, the man says, yeah, the problem is, he clearly announces what his problem is. One thing, you need to listen for these conversation markers, these signal phrases. When you hear them, by the way, this will be equally important on the listening test, or even more important on the listening test. You listen for these kinds of statements. The problem is, I can't get started. Okay, so that's the problem. He can't start writing his paper. Okay, then he, in general, they always do this. He'll give some more details about it. I have all the information. That's the frustrating thing. I started my research early. Okay, then you have you considered? Okay, another signal. Here it comes. Here comes a solution. We say, have you considered? Okay, you're listening for this type of phrase. Have you thought about? Have you considered? Would you consider? Or simply, what about? How about? Here comes a solution. Here comes advice. All right. So get ready, because this is the next very important point. You have to know the problem, first solution, and then, okay, they talk about, she explains it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, notice here, okay, well, the other thing is, again, with a signal phrase to indicate, oh, here comes something, and even what about, I forgot that she said this, but here's another indicator. Here comes a suggestion. When English speakers say, what about, it means it's a suggestion. It has to be. Okay, what about making an outline? He even repeats, an outline? Okay, so there we have it. Suggestion number 2, an outline. That's the key word. So the keywords that you're looking for in your answer will be telegraphed. They will be signaled to you before you even hear them. It's really one of the keys to getting the main points so you can speak. And frankly, in the listening portion of the TOEFL test, it's really the same thing. Every time they say, what about, blah, 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 guess what? There's going to be a question about it. Every time they say, the first important aspect is, guess what? There's going to be a question. Every time they say, in my opinion, blah, 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 guess what? There's going to be a question about it. That's the way it is. That's just the way that it's very, very important to listen for those when you're making notes. Okay, now let's look at a templated response for this. Remember, you only have 60 seconds. Let's look at a sample templated response. First of all, state the problem clearly and succinctly. This is not a big part of the question that you have to answer. This is a relatively small detail you need to answer. The problem is that the man is unable to write his paper. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. Okay, state the solutions. Again, the most important part of this question is giving your opinion. So you need to get through this section as quickly as possible. His friend proposes 2 different solutions. The first is to just try to write whatever comes into his head. The second is to make an outline. You could simply use an or statement. His friend suggests that he could just free write, or he might want to try writing an outline. Even better, okay, I said free write. I'm using a synonym or a synonym phrase because I know that's what it's called in English. Okay, very important to have at your disposal probably at least 10 different ways to 10 different verbs to express the idea that somebody says something. His friend proposes, suggests, makes the suggestion, advises. Okay, in other portions of the test, the person states, the person might confirm, the person might argue against, simply the person says, the person indicates. You need to study up on verbs for speaking, that indicate speaking for the TOEFL exam. Highly advise that. The other thing is, notice the first, the second, great. I might suggest using or, because that's also a connector. Any connectors, just as you are listening for these signal phrases, you have to be using them in your actual answer. Very, very important. Okay, so anyway, again, quickly state the problem. What are the possible solutions? Even you could say it even more directly. It really doesn't matter. Stating the solutions is not actually part of the question. Okay? It doesn't really say that. It says describe the problem. You must do that. State which of the two solutions you prefer and explain why. You must do that. This portion is not actually part of the necessary answer. However, it helps organize the speech. It bridges between the problem and your preference. So you really should do it. You could do it even faster. His friend suggests he could just free write or write an outline. You can say it that fast just to get through it. Then state your preference. Not a big deal. Again, in a very clear way. I think, in my opinion, from my perspective, the way I see it, he should write an outline. Okay. I think that writing an outline is a better solution. Okay, fine. Actually, the more important part is to use the signal phrase, I think, or in my opinion, something like that. Okay, an outline is the best way of organizing your thoughts because the student has already done the research. All he needs to do is figure out how to put the information together. Okay, connectives, because reason 2, definitely you should always be using a signal phrase. Additionally, as well, moreover, secondly, whatever. Some kind of connecting word or phrase. Here we see additionally. Additionally, making an outline is more productive than just writing whatever you think of. Okay, the student could waste a lot of time writing stuff that isn't good, but working on an outline will directly contribute to the paper. Okay. Also, an outline is the best way of organizing your thoughts. Well, okay, that is really just a ho-hum, blah, boring, stupid reason. Well, the truth is you don't need to have a brilliant reason to have a brilliant answer. In fact, your reasons may be stupid, but it really doesn't matter. The fact is, are you answering the question? That and how is your speech? That's the point of this exam, not to have a good answer. That's really not the point. The point is that your answer matches the question and that your English speaking is good. Okay, so don't kill yourself. Don't beat yourself up thinking, oh, I don't have a wonderful, brilliant, engaging response. That's not the point. It's simply not the point at all. You're missing the point. If you're really concerned about having a brilliant response, then you're wasting time and energy, not doing what you should be doing. Okay, so there it is. That's basically it. Problem, solutions, state your preference, and then why. Always remember this: reason, detail, reason, detail. Always do this. Now, one other thing I could add here: your detail. Feel free to add examples from your own real-life experience. That's perfectly okay. In fact, it's a much easier way to add detail when we're familiar with something. We tend to speak a lot clearer, with greater confidence, using vocabulary we know. It's just easier to talk about things we know on a personal level rather than generalizations. And that goes for native speakers as well. That is why English speakers generally use very specific examples, even to make general points. Constantly we do this. It's a lot easier, and it's clearer for the listener. Okay, that's basically the idea. Any questions about this sort of organization?
Just a quick question about the
Sure.
frame.
Yeah.
So you're right. The answer, the reason is not in the conversation. You have to come up with the reasons based on the conversation. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's an opinion. So you have to come up with your own opinion. Right.
Okay.
And again, you could just as easily, by the way, you could just as easily say, I think it would be a better idea to just free write whatever came into his head. Okay. First of all, free writing is much easier to get started. Since his problem is getting started, it's much easier to just write down whatever you think of. The second reason I think that free writing would be better is because you don't necessarily have to use all of the information you write down if you're free writing. I'm sure that he will go back and do a second draft and even another final draft possibly. So it really doesn't matter if he has extraneous extra information. Okay, see, I just did from here on down. I did that from the top of my head just because you asked the question.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. The correct answer, by the way, the correct answer is the one that you can quickly think of two reasons for. That would be the correct answer. Even if you yourself, in your heart and in your mind, don't believe it or don't think it's true, if you can think of a couple reasons for one solution or the other, then you only have 20 seconds to prep, then that's the one you should do. That's the one you should focus on. And reality has nothing to do with this exam, okay? Nothing at all. So what you believe or feel in your emotional heart and your intellectual brain have nothing to do with the exam. Don't worry about that. It's whatever is easier for you to talk about. Okay, any other questions before we move on to number 6? All right, here it is. Number 6 is many students believe that this is the most difficult part of the exam. I think number 4 or number 6, but anyway. 5 has its challenges. You need to practice a lot so you can get the timing down in question number 5. It's actually a fairly easy question. It's just difficult timing. You just need to practice. Okay. I'm going to, instead of just making you guys listen, I'm going to go ahead and read this because I want you to follow along and be able to see this as we go along. Number 6, the listening part is a lecture. Always. A lecture, a professor talking about some academic whatever, often to do with nature, sociology, psychology, something of that nature, geology, whatever. One of the ologies, probably. History, maybe. In any case. All right. It starts out very brief introduction by the narrator. Don't forget about the narrator. He's going to give you a clue. For example, here, now listen to a part of a talk in an archaeology class. Okay, you can start to use predictive listening. You at least know it's archaeology, so you have some idea where you're going. Okay, and then here we go. Now, what I would like you guys to do as I'm doing the lecture, please grab a pencil, grab some paper, and make notes. What are you going to make notes of? You're going to make notes of, first of all, there's going to be a topic, a general topic, and then there's going to be a controlling idea. What is the speaker's focus on? All right, fine. Okay, most gems. Okay, the general topic is going to be something about gemstones. Great, but what is he really focused on explaining? You've got to capture that. We'll talk about it later. Also, He's going to he's going to make different points. Try to capture those points. Again, keep in mind what I had said about signal words and signal phrases. And you're not only going to hear me say them, you'll be able to read them if you can follow along. Okay. Here we go. Let me have a little water. All right, here we go. Most gems weren't formed by life processes, so they're very durable. If you're one of the lucky few archaeologists who discover an ancient crown inlaid with, say, rubies, you'll probably have to worry more about damage to the metal than to the stones themselves. But some gemstones are organic. They are more fragile and can present special problems if you've dug them up and need to preserve them. One example is amber, which formed millions of years ago from tree sap. The tree sap breaks down on exposure to air, but if the tree died and was buried in an airtight space before decaying, the sap could harden into amber. That's where amber gets its liquid clarity and smoothness. Now, once it's hardened, you don't need to worry about oxygen breaking it down. What you do need to worry about is, well, think of it as being like hardened wax. If it comes too near heat, it may melt or deform. Also, contact with oils or strong acids can injure the surface and make it cloudy. The basic thing to remember is avoid sudden temperature changes and any contact with cleaning solutions and other such chemicals. Another organic gem is coral. Coral is sort of the skeleton of creatures from the ocean floor, made of calcium carbonate, often with keratin mixed in. That's what makes it pinkish and orangish. You don't have to worry about melting coral, but you do have to worry about scratching it. Calcium carbonate is naturally rather powdery, so it chips easily. Also, it's very porous, so it absorbs liquids quickly. You need to make sure that you never soak coral in water or pour chemicals over it. Okay, that's it. That's all you get. Hope you made good notes. Okay, then the narrator is going to come on and say something like, using points and examples from the talk, explain how archaeologists must take the origins of amber and coral into consideration when caring for them. Okay, in question 6, the question itself here that I have highlighted from the narrator will change a lot. Unlike question 5, where the question itself is exactly the same every single time. Here, you're going to have to do reported speech, but you're also going to have to draw some kind of relationships between two things. The lecturer may be explaining something, well, which he does here. He may be arguing against a theory. He may be supporting a theory. He may be explaining a process. First this, then this, then this, then this. You have to kind of identify what he's trying to do. In this case, the lecturer was basically just giving information. He wasn't arguing for or against anything, and he wasn't explaining a process. Okay. Here we go. Using points and examples from the talk, explain how archaeologists must take the origins of amber and coral into consideration when caring for them. Wasu, would you like to give it a try?
How? You mean I answer this? Explain how archaeologists must take origins, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a clue. Start off. Remember, I said you need to know what the talk is about. Okay. All right. So start off introducing what you're going to say. So you can do that by explaining the lecturer or the speaker or the professor, whatever. The professor speaks about whatever he's the topic and the controlling idea, and that's it, period. And then you already know, actually in the question it gives you, first of all, he talks about amber, and then talk about amber as much information as you can give, and then secondly, he talks about coral. Okay, but remember, we're thinking about caring for them, and we're thinking about the origins. Where do they come from, and how do we care for them? That's it. Okay? You want to give it a try?
Maybe it's too hard for me.
Okay, no problem. Hogan, you want to give it a try?
Actually, I try to write down some notes on my note, but
Yeah.
is it very tricky to write down some notes and listening at the same time?
Yes,
So
it is.
I just missed a lot of things. I probably write down several words, but I don't think that this is enough.
Okay.
So whatever I think I can just try to say that. So professor,
Okay. Yeah,
okay,
go ahead, and I'll address your concern in a moment. Go
okay.
ahead. Mm-hmm.
So the professor lectured about the gems and how to take care of the archaeologists have to take care of the two gems. The professor given two examples, one amber and the other one is coral. And the the amber is coming from the tree and is fraserol. So when you take this amber from the ground, then you have to very careful so that it cannot break while you are taking out from the ground. And I think I missed a lot of facts about the amber because I didn't really write down the memo. And the second one, the coral, and that is from the sea creatures, and it is porous. So you have to be very careful about the contacting the water. I think that's all I can say.
Okay. I think that's all the time you would have anyway. Okay, that is actually not that bad. It's not that bad because one of the key elements is organizing your speech, and it was very easy to follow your speech. All right, you said that generally what it's about, and then specifically, and you said, okay, he talked about two things, amber and coral. First of all, amber, he said amber comes from tree sap. All right, so you've got the origins. You definitely covered that aspect. You know, could have done better in the parts about caring for them, but actually that answer would not be bad at all. Would be a decent score. A couple small points. Of course, you got confused how the archaeologists have to take care of them. He talked about how the archaeologists have to take care of them. You kind of had some self-correction and changed your sentence a couple times. Pronunciation, fragile. Okay, fragile. Easily broken. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. You have to very careful. You have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. Yeah. Remember that you, after have to, which is a modal, we need a verb. We have to use a verb after have to. In that case, I used use after have to. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to come home early. I have to see that movie. We always need a verb. So in this case, the verb to be. Okay. All right, let's actually, before we take a look at the template, let's talk about your note-taking question. That's a very good question. It is hard, and it takes practice to listen and make notes at the same time. I do things like this. I do things kind of like this. I'll try to write notes into the Verbling chat. Okay, as I'm hearing it, all right, most gyms were formed by life process, very durable, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I know that this is an important part where I hear but. Also, I tried to use my intonation to indicate to you, but some gemstones are organic. Okay, before I actually hear anything, I actually do things like this. Okay, I write T before I start to hear when the narrator's speaking. I write T equals C equals P equals, and of course I'm doing this in the chat box, so I'd be doing this on a piece of paper, leaving myself plenty of room to make notes. P equals D equals P equals D equals, meaning topic. As soon as I knew the topic, gems. Okay, I'd write gems. And then C, okay, organic. I just write the word organic. P, point. Okay, D, detail. Point, oh, okay, amber. He's talking about amber. P equals, all right, I just write the word amber. That's it. Then detail, I might write tree sap. You caught that point. That was actually very good. You actually caught a lot of the points. You would have scored fairly well. Maybe for all of this information about the origin, you wouldn't really get all that much. Maybe wax. It's like kind of like wax. Okay. He telegraphs some important information. What you do need to worry about, okay, again with emphasis on do, listen for high pitches, because even if you, I mean, if I didn't know any English, listen for, okay, after there's going to be important, really important information. Something you have to practice, but trust me, it works. It really works on the listening test. What you do need to worry about, well, here it comes. He kind of explains hardened wax, comes too near to heat. Also, okay, when we speak these signal phrases, we use higher pitch. Also, contact with oils or strong acids. Okay, maybe I'd quickly write down, okay, acid, just one word. So maybe for this whole paragraph, I might have written down 4 words total, maybe only 3 or 4 words. So I'm certainly not making sentences. At the most, 2-word phrases. All right, coral, I might write calcium carbonate. I might write that down. I think the first time I tried this, I did write that down. Porous is a great keyword to write down. Good words to use. I think you actually used that. And then you need to make sure at the very end you never soak coral in water or pour chemicals. All right, water, chemicals. Sometimes, for example, when I'm making notes, I'll do things like this. Okay, if it's a process, all right, I'm going to use arrows. Okay, maybe I'll circle important nouns. Maybe I'll underline important verbs. I make myself kind of a code using very quick note-taking things like note, circles, arrows. okay, to help myself so I don't have to actually, so I understand the relationships between these simple words I'm writing. Your particular note-taking style is going to have to be up to you, whatever works for you. But I'm just sharing with you a couple tricks that I use in order to be able to take notes and still be able to focus on listening. Also, another thing, practice making notes while you're not looking at the paper. That may sound weird, but it really does help. If you can actually write when you're not looking at what you're writing, for some reason it helps me anyway. It helps me to focus on the listening and stay with the listening, because I'm not putting my concentration on watching what I'm doing. My concentration is all in my ears, so to speak, I guess. Okay. Anyway, I hope those suggestions might be helpful. Create like an outline for your notes before he even starts is one, and the other thing is write without looking. Okay, let's look at a sample response. Let's look at the template. Again, more verbs that talk about speaking. According to the professor, both amber and coral can be harmed by certain processes. All right. Now here's another thing with this question, number 6. There are literally, I don't know, there's probably a dozen different first sentences, dozens of different ways you can attack this question. You might say, okay, I would have said the professor is talking about gemstones. In particular, he's focused on talking about organic gemstones that can easily be harmed. Okay, I wouldn't even mention amber and coral to begin with. There's a lot of different ways to start, and the fact is, question 6, there is a wider range of how you can attack this question and still be correct. Okay, all right. Let's see what they got here. Amber is made from hardened tree sap. Well, that's what you said. Because of this fact, amber can be damaged by heat, oils, and acids. Okay. Then what we're doing here is linking the idea to your main idea. Thus, archaeologists have to be careful not to expose amber to high temperatures, which can affect the shape of amber. Also, some liquids will make the amber cloudy. He just throws in a little piece of information because maybe he didn't really hear that. Okay. Now, again, there are lots of different ways to say that. Okay. First, you could say present this first section totally differently. You could say first the professor talks about amber. He explains how amber is from ancient tree sap and how it has certain properties or characteristics that make it fragile. For example, you really can't put amber near heat because it will melt like wax. See, there are many ways to actually say it and still be right. Okay, but again, what's consistent all week long, we've been looking at these TOEFL things. What's consistent is different ways to say somebody said something. According to the professor stated, the professor states, okay, the professor says, the professor talks about, whatever. And the use of connectives. Because of, thus, also, you've got to be using these. What you say in the middle, particularly in this question, really, I mean, 1,000 different people would have 1,000 different answers, honestly. There's not one particular perfect answer here. Okay, reason 2, corals made up of the skeletons of sea creatures. All right, this is very close to, Hogan, what you had said. Because it is brittle, it can be scratched or chipped. Additionally, it can absorb liquid. Archaeologists, therefore, must be careful not to soak quarrel or handle it roughly. I think they also mentioned chemicals. Okay, which he does not mention. Here's the thing. I said Hogan's answer was very good. He didn't get all of these details, but you don't really have to. All right? You don't have to get everything. He misses poor chemicals over it, for example. It's not necessary to get every single detail. Yeah, Hogan, do you have a question?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Oops. Okay. Anyway, that's basically the idea and how it's probably going to sound. Hang on a second. Let me. Any questions about this section?
It's not a question, but I just want to mention that when I listen to this the lecture, I first I missed the tricep. I didn't know the meaning of sap, so that's why I start to the struggle to understand what they say, what it says. So I just got like a tree. So later then it says wax and some. I have no connection between the tree and wax and amber. So I think those are the key words. I don't really understand. That might be a problem to understand the entire story, I guess.
Yeah. See, that's that. You're right. It's going to be a lot easier if you understand the vocabulary of the keywords. Obviously, yes. You might be able to pick out things from context, but again, in general, English speakers tend to highlight keywords, and if you can figure out what they're talking about, again, you don't have to get everything. Okay. Yeah, that's tough. When you really don't know the vocabulary words, that makes it very tough, especially if you don't know the noun and the verb in one particular sentence. Usually you can figure it out from context. If there's one word in a sentence, you know that sentence is a noun or a verb or an adjective, you can figure it out. But if you don't, you might be in trouble. Okay, some last points. We've only got just a few minutes here to talk about this TOEIC speaking test, so I want to go over some of the major key points just to conclude. First of all, know what the graders want. Absolutely. There are 3 scoring categories: delivery, which includes how smoothly you speak, your rhythm, and your intonation, and your pronunciation. Okay, all of that is included in one category. So don't speak too fast. I know you're timed and people tend to speak too fast on the TOEFL test. Just take it easy. If you are speaking and it is very clear that you are organized, if it's extremely clear that you're going to say it, even if you get cut off, you can still get without saying everything you want, you can still get a top score. So breathe, relax, and speak normally. Not to mention, a fast pace of speech actually makes any pronunciation problems or accent problems worse. For some reason, many second language students seem to think that speaking faster makes their accent go away. Actually, it makes it twice as bad, 3 times as bad. It's absolutely a false idea. So a nice even delivery. Language use includes vocabulary and grammar. Really, just study English. If you're properly using signal words and signal phrases, the beauty is not only does that help your topic development and organization, it also helps your language use because you have a lot of them, and also it helps your grammar because using them forces subordinate clauses. It forces you to speak more complex grammar structures. So hey, definitely use those signal words and signal phrases because it helps in every area, including topic development. You have to answer the question as fully as you can. Okay, even if you speak perfect English, if you don't answer the question correctly or with enough detail, or if you don't answer what they're asking you to answer, your score is going to suffer. Don't bother trying to be perfect. You won't be anyway. Even native speakers don't speak perfectly. What the graders are actually looking at is how easy it is to understand what you say. In other words, if you speak for a minute and I can understand everything that you're saying, even if you have minor mistakes like a wrong preposition, one mispronounced word, you missed an article, you got the verb tense wrong, but I understand everything you said, you can still get a perfect score, a 4, which would be a 4. It is possible. On the other hand, if you speak for a minute and I don't understand a half a sentence and I didn't understand 2 other words, you're not going to get a 4, you might get a 3. If you had an entire sentence I could not understand at all what you were talking about, you're going to get a 2. If you had combinations of 2 sentences in a row I could not understand, then you're going to get a 1. You really shouldn't be taking the test in the first place. Okay. Speak smoothly and confidently. I already said that. Connect your ideas with transitions. I already said that, but one more time. And the templates that I have been sharing all week long, really, it's really much easier. It will build your confidence for the TOEFL exam. I don't really recommend this for CAE or IELTS, but for the TOEFL exam, go ahead and memorize a template. Know what order you're going to say everything. The questions all follow the same format. You can follow a format in your answer. And if you have it memorized what you're going to do, it's going to make dealing with the content that much easier because you have less to worry about. And the structure of your answer is part of the scoring, so why not help out your own score? Okay.
Hello? Hello? You still there?